Back is to Family and Values, and we're all seated to be on this beautiful topic, school resumption. Today we're focusing basically on parenting, and so we're talking about school resumption. Many students are resuming back to school, and sometimes you wonder how well, the standard of education, what those private and the government school has to offer, and how well they can meet the required standard you want as a parent, and where you want your son or your daughter to be schooling, to go to learn. And so we'll be looking at that this morning because it really calls for a lot of concern when we talk about schooling, either private or government. And to be discussing with us this morning is Reverend Mike Olang. He's a minister of the word, a relationship expert, a family and life coach. And we want to say you're welcome to the program this morning. It's so good to have you on Family and Values.
Thank you so much.
Morning,
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Happy New Year, everyone.
You know one beautiful thing about parenting, educators, teachers, or people who are so concerned about when you talk about the well-being of upbringing of children, they always have this look that you know that this is serious business. And you must look responsible, the look, the presentation. It's so good to have you, sir.
Thank you so much.
I almost thought he was maybe a principal and just trying
or even a proprietor.
A proprietor,
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
it's
so
good to
much.
have
I'm
you.
glad to be here once again. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what is most important thing we need when we're talking about school education, our children having a good basis at the standard of education of picking a school for our children? What is the most important thing when you're ready to resume back to school?
Okay. The most important thing I would say is trying to see how you can provide those necessities that is needed by the children, especially textbooks and maybe upkeep as pocket money. That is what is going to make or put a smile on the children's face when they're going to school. That fees are paid, and also the books are also available, and they have something in the pocket to play around in school. So those are necessities, and it's very crucial that one begin to plan for it even before the resumption of school. Like they say, he that fails to plan has planned to actually fail. So planning is very, very important, and that is where budgeting also comes into play. Parenting, budgeting, there are two very important blocks when you talk about family. You can't remove one. They are both very important. We need to begin to see how to help these children to learn what budgeting is, helping them to see what saving does. It's not everything the child needs that it's always necessary. We can learn to let the child know there are some needs and there are some wants. Sometimes the child thinks he needs something, but really actually doesn't need that child. So they need to be taught so that they too can also be in that process of helping the parents to keep some funds aside for their education. Because sometimes children, for who they are, they always want to explore. They see their friends and they want to meet up with the standards. And so one can be tender. Sometimes these children can be very manipulative because they can start crying or start doing stuff because they know how to get into the heart of the parents.
Very true.
Just to get emotional, to make them begin to feel pity for them. But the parents need to maybe put their feet down and help the children to begin to learn that, look, your academics education is a very, very important part of your life. And so starting early to teach them how to set some funds aside. It's not every money that comes that you just spend. They should be taught to keep some money aside. They should be taught to persevere, to endure some things. Sometimes it's not everything they need that will be made available. Because if we do that, what we are teaching that child is that anything you want, you can get, and which is not always true. It's not always true. Sometimes it makes them go to the extreme. They get into all kinds of vices. They can easily be swayed into things that are not actually moral or that will bring gladness or joy to the family. So I think the most important thing there is to have those funds that will help these children have a good education.
Okay, Reverend, you're talking about now, you've spoken about parents helping children and children help. Now let's take it from the school aspect.
Okay.
Now, we grew up knowing that we had textbooks that we labeled family, social person's library. So you use, your younger ones use. But now what we are seeing in schools is they'll give you a list of books as a parent, and even when the whole section is over, the child does not cover half of what that textbook covers, and that is gone. And then the next section, now that means if you have a child who is going to the next class, that child can't use that. You have to buy all that. How do schools help parents? Because the demand, the books are on the high side, and every school wants to have their own branded books, so you can't even walk into the bookshop to buy books, which was common before. So how do schools now help parents to cut down most of these expenses? Because it's really telling on parents when you look at the list of books they will bring, and you have like 4 kids in different classes, and that section is gone. There was a time we burnt a whole lot of backlog of books, and half of them, nothing was covered. So how do we address this issue? How do schools really help parents in that angle?
Oh, well, I think for that, the school are just trying to maximize profit, which is not fair.
At the expense?
At the expense, yes, of the parents. It's not fair. Especially like what you just said now, we have parents that have 2, 3 children in different classes. So that means they need to buy those books because they can't use the ones that we are used before, which is not supposed to be. Now, I had a case to my kids when they were still in secondary school. Mine wasn't totally that bad because there were some that they could still use, some I need to buy. And the school go extra mile to say if you don't have these books, you won't be allowed into the class.
That's it.
And like you said, they don't cover half of. So these are very pressing issues that the government need to come into, because they just let this school run without actually control. So the parents are really taking the crux of it, really taking the heat, because they need to get the books. You don't want your kids to be at home while the others are in school. So I think the government should come in and then see how they can make this syllabus stay for a while, because they tell us syllabus have changed, so we have to change textbook. So I don't know why the syllabus keep changing every term or change every year. The syllabus should be made to stay for a while so that these children can use the books of their maybe seniors as they have passed. They can also use those books, provided it's not the workbook, because the workbook, they feel it.
When we had textbooks and workbooks.
And most of the time, then when we're growing up, you still pass on the textbooks to our junior ones, at least 2, 3
Yes.
ones after behind us will still have access to
the
use it.
workbook you will buy, but
It's
not
just
even
a
in the
workbook,
textbook,
but
you
now-
insist you do the
Yes.
assignments.
Yeah,
Which is-
because everyone wants to make money. Everything is about money. To some, I'm sorry, but to some, that's the way it is. Anyway, now the question I want to ask is this. What is your advice to parents who seem to pass all responsibility to the teachers rather than, they said, train your child, and when they grow up,
Yes.
you will reap the fruits when they
Yes.
grow up. Now, training a child, to some parents, is all about sending them to school. School are resuming. They have resumed yesterday. And many, I have to go and make money. I need to pay school fees. I need to do this. So they leave that responsibility to the teachers. What is your advice to them?
Okay. What I'll say is that parenting is not something you can sublet. It's not something you can give to someone else to do. These children spend more time at home than in school. And they say charity begins at home. Now, the family is a unit of the community. So if some parents have that mindset that I'll just ship my kids to the teacher and let the teacher do the job, then they've not really understood what it means, what parenting is all about. Because parenting is a process where you bring up children, now providing care and protection for them so that they can grow up into healthy adults. That is what parenting is all about. So if a parent will say, okay, because I want to make money, my kids should just be shipped to school, I will pay the teacher whatever he or she needs or whatever they charge. That is failure from the beginning. That's failure.
From the
Because the
beginning.
children will now grow up just living their life anyhow. We've seen instances, of course, the scandal that happened in Chrisland. I know all these are things we see because the parents don't actually pay attention. I mean, Sylvester, the other guy that was killed, the parents didn't listen. Of course, the guy had been saying, it's just, parents just hear. They need to learn to listen to the children, not just hear them, but listen to what they are saying. Now, most of the parents, I'm sorry to say, don't have that time. And I think it's something they need to begin to change and adjust. Because these children will grow up representing them. So whoever these children now begin to tailor after, or they just try to model after, or become, this is my idol, I want to become like this person. The parents need to know so that they can help, guide, and then help this child to know, okay, this is the way you should go. This is the way you should go. So that by the time they've grown up, this money that they supposedly they are making will not be spent trying to repair. Because it is more easy to train a child than to repair an adult.
Very true.
When a child is formed to an adult, there's nothing you can do. You can't repair, you can't fix. We've heard of instances where, I think this happened some years back. This child the father sent him to the UK, just like what you've said, go to the UK, pay all the money and all that. This guy got into the bad people and he was introduced into drugs. To cut long story short, the British government could not keep any more. They shipped him back to Nigeria. Now, the father was so raged that I'm an important personnel in my church and all that. You want to bring his grace to the family. Now, took the child to Regent Mass University. Now, most of them, they think these universities are where you just go and dump children and then they'll be fixed. It's not that easy to fix. Either there is formed. So what now happened was that this child refused to listen to the father, refused to be obedient because he's lived his life anyhow he wanted without any guidance. So the father said, this is my house. I want us to be praying at Sultan. The guy said, you can't tell me what to do. I'm an adult. You can't be controlling my life.
Yeah,
and then before you know, this guy got so rich with the father. One money plant killed the man, put him inside the father, then locked him in the store. Just forget about him.
Okay, now let's what are the criteria when parents want to change the schools of their wards, or maybe they felt like standard, I want to change? Are we looking at proximity or popularity? Because sometimes you hear parents want to change school because a friend has a child there, or they feel like, okay, I'm below the standard. And now the thing is, once financially they are a bit, they feel like, oh no, let's take it higher. So what are those things that parents should look out for? Because it is happening right now that,
yes,
you know, we are in resumption.
Yes, I think what you said is right. Proximity is key here.
Proximity.
You don't need to impress anybody. I mean, sometimes you feel because your class have changed by virtue of some income or some investment that just yielded, and so you've got much money now. You want to be in a certain class to belong to that very group. It's not necessary. Because the thing there is that the economy is not smiling at anybody this time.
At all.
Inflation is going up by the day.
Yeah.
By the day.
So one just needs to be very, very wise with finances.
Wisdom.
Wisdom, thank you very much. That is it. So you don't spend excessively, because education is very, very expensive. Even the proximity we're talking about is not cheap.
It's not cheap.
It's just that some costs are cut. I mean, you don't pay for the transport anymore. You know, there are some other things that that money can also go into savings. Yes, let me save this money since my child is no longer going to that school that is distant. At least I know that now I've cut costs. Let me keep this money aside so that money can be used, you know, for something productive later on. So I think proximity is key here, so that one will not shoot himself or herself on the foot, starting something you know you can't finish because somehow you had a surge in finance, or maybe some investment yielded and you have now more money and you just feel, yes, things are not always going to be the same.
Yeah,
so you also plan towards that, let me do what I feel it is best for my child. Not compromising standard anyway. The child should be given the best that you can at the level in which you are.
Okay, it's time for us to join our Zoom guest. But before then, we'll have to go on Words on Marble, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's still family and values, and our guest is right here. But now we're joining our Zoom guest. Remy Lawal, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Okay. I want to say thank you for joining us. Remy Lawal is a parenting and family life coach, a therapist, and a minister of the word. Is joining us live from Ibadan. Hey, Badanile. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you, and good morning, everybody.
Okay, so it's good to have you. We have been talking about parenting, and we're focusing on school resumption. You agree with me that when children or students, pupils are about to get back to school like this, there is always, hey, money, school fees, shoes, bag, textbooks, everything will be, they need to do coaching. This one is in JSS 3, she needs to do exam. This one just, everything will be, everybody will be running helter-skelter. It's like you are building a house, but this is building life. So, to you, what is required when children or students are about to resume back to school?
All right, thank you very much. We're talking about family and values. And values are principles that guide every home. There is this saying in Yoruba that the pregnancy of 9 months does not happen on someone suddenly. I am sure that from the very first day the child went on vacation, we knew the child was going to resume. I also sympathize with a lot of us, given the economy of the nation at the moment, just like Pastor said earlier. However, I strongly believe that, like you mentioned, we're building is a structure, and every structure must have a foundation. And what saves us the struggle is when you align things, you prioritize things, and you put them in proper order. I do know that when I acquire a land, I need to do clearing then before I do the substructure, which you call foundation. So with that, I believe that we need to properly plan. Pastor said earlier, if you do not plan, it's another means of planning. So it's either you plan to succeed or you're planning to fail. So my advice is, number one, just like Pastor said earlier, do not put your children in schools to meet up your standard. The children are not there for your standard. The children are not to show up your standard. And we need to get this. Children have their lives to live, and you must allow them live their lives. Children should not be tools of elitism. I need to use my kids to show the world that I have arrived. I think that's the first thing we do when we get it wrong. I had a parent call me sometime last year that who chooses the school the child will attend, tertiary institution. The child wanted to attend a federal university, and the parents wants the child to go to a private university. I said, please allow him go to where he would find comfort. First and foremost, a child needs to be appropriately regulated before he or she can take in anything. So we must not use our children as tools for social status. That's number one. Then you must consider your needs, your resources. Do not forget that your resources have to carry a lot of things beyond school fees. So when you use all you have to pay up school fees, what then would you use to feed the others and feed yourself? So we cut down struggles. Now we're talking about values. I'm going to break this down out of values. Whatever you do that becomes your mode of coming out of crisis, becomes your children's start-up point in life for whatever they want to do. So if you teach your children how not to live within their means, it becomes their own way of life because they are learning it from you. So if your salary is 100,000 naira a month, I don't think it makes any sense to put your child in a school where they charge 600,000 naira. That means 2 months' salary will go into that child's education. You have not factored in clothing, shelter, you've not factored in security, you've not factored in health, you've not factored in a lot of things. There are other miscellaneous expenses that will come up in between those periods. So you need to put those into consideration. And then who tells us that expensive is the best? The fact that the school pays so much means that they give you premium. I work with some of these people, and then we can tell you that in most cases the results are cloned. If you're privileged to see the result of this person and that person, you just realize that what they do is to impress parents so that you don't say, why is my child this and all of that. The results are cloned. So mine is, like Pastor said earlier, your children spend more time with you than they spend in school. You are the one that is to inculcate the culture and the values you want in your children in them. The schools is only there to amplify what you have put in them. The schools are there to help you amplify the values, not just for you to lay all the responsibilities at the feet of the school. I think that on its own is absolutely irresponsible. So to cut this off, I think we should just plan properly, understand your needs, understand your resources, and then ask yourself, what can my resources take? Bearing in mind that no matter how much you earn, savings will save your life someday.
Okay, Rev, thank you very much for that. But let's take it from the angle of homeschooling. Outside the shores of this country, homeschooling is encouraged, whereby if you don't have money to actually send your child to school, you can give your child that education while the child is at home. So why is it that in this part of the world we have not really encouraged homeschooling? Because sometimes most parents don't actually have the funds to even send their kids to school. So they have to stress themselves beyond just to let that child be in a registered school, all quote unquote. So why can't we encourage homeschooling, where you sit at home, bring the same syllable back to the house, and take that child throughout the period? If it's 1 year, the child has to stay at home until you bounce back to be able to take the child back to school. Why are we not encouraging homeschooling in this part?
Okay, well, you see, like I said earlier, I mentioned something about social status. What will my friends say that my child could not go to school? And until we get off that, until we get that hunch off our backs and stop bothering ourselves about what people would say, and then face reality. I have an in-law, a brother-in-law of mine, who had to personally take a decision to homeschool his children. And guess what? The child, by the time she sat for WAEC, amazed everybody. I'm telling you, she came out with an amazing result. She's in the university right now with no secondary education, no formal secondary education. He personally spared time. He didn't have time. It took him so much. It took a lot from him, which is what we all must understand. It took a lot from him. He had to shuttle between that and his work. So now, we may not have a system that encourages it, but when you realize that you can't afford the regular school, why don't you adopt this as your own? There's a popular pastor, I think I can mention his name here, Pastor Matthew Ashimolo. You all must know his story, does not have a secondary school education. He schooled himself, he taught himself at home, and then went to write the WAEC. And from then on, he moved on. Today, the rest is history. We all know where he is. So, if you realize that your means cannot carry it, please and please adopt the system that works for you. People have tried it, and it actually works. And also, let's not forget, education is important. Do you believe that a lot of us do not know that if you homeschool your children and have them sit for the general exams, it is still acceptable? So I think we need to educate people. We need to start letting them know that if you can't afford it, if you can homeschool them, if you are educated yourself, then you can get this done. So I think the first thing is to educate. If they know, if they do, then we then begin to watch them embrace it. And like I just shared stories of 2 people, do they have stories of people who have tried it and are also that tried doing it? So these are things we need to push out there. The government is not going to do it, I bet you.
Remy, the question I want to ask you this morning. still working on the question Joy asked. Now, we have government schools and we have private schools. Does that mean that being a government school, you cannot get what you desire? Or is it that they are not up to standard? Do you think your child can go and attain the education that you want? Because sometimes staying at home, many believe that it will not help the children. There are some children that when they're in the midst of others, it helps them to, you know, get their wave and show the wisdom and the knowledge God has given to them. Now, taking them at home may not be the right thing. Even the special autism children do have a way they bring them up and all that. But now we're talking about children who are all good, bright, ready to run. Does that mean the standard of education when it comes to government school does not work? Because my children went to government school. After a while, I had to move them from private school and move them to government school. Now, the government school is for people who cannot meet up with the high standard of school fees, the high level. Sometimes we put our children in this particular level, not knowing that they can do more. So, government school, private school, what are your views on this?
All right, I'm going to boldly say this morning. There will be backlash, and I really don't care. I'm sorry, I don't care. By the nature of the work I do, I think I relate with a lot of them. I mentioned that earlier. First and foremost, something you mentioned, you know, when you talk about sociology and psychological aspect of human life, it is important to allow them mingle, because education is beyond the books and the courses you study. There is the sociology aspect of human life. You see, children will never learn language sitting in your house. They learn language by interacting with other people. Children will never learn culture by sitting in your house. They will learn culture by interacting with other people. So that's just by the way. Then the dichotomy between private school and public school. I'm just going to give you something to chew on. I need you to Google some of the international competitions that Nigerian students have been part of and the winners. Please, if you have a name of any winner of these international competitions that is from any private school, name one. You can run that on your Google search right now, and in 10 seconds you have the result. Excuse me. So you do not have, you probably will not have one child from any of these international competitions that is from a private school. All of them, I mean all of them, are from public schools. The same most maligned segment of the education system that people have really spoken bad of has produced some of these great minds that we talk about today. And yet, because it doesn't meet my social status, that's why my children cannot go there. Are you aware that the system would never employ someone who struggled through school to come and work in the public school? These are people who truly went through education system. When you go to our private schools, I mean, over 70 or 80% of them have school dropouts. They have people who are struggling to make their jump. They are the ones, what they are looking for is how to maximize cost. People they can pay stipends. People they can give like 12,000 that is equally not regular. People they can pay 20,000 that is also not regular. So from their pay, you know that they cannot give their best. If I don't earn well, I cannot work well. So you can imagine what the children go through. All you just have in the name of certain private schools are noise control centers, and where you just keep children for security purpose so that there will be a guardian over them. So this dichotomy about private and public schools should please stop. I can beat my chest to say, in Lagos and in Ibadan, where I am right now, we have fantastic, I mean fantastic public schools that parents, well-to-do parents, are struggling to put their kids in. So we should stop this idea of because they don't pay so much, they don't do this. I think most of the financial pressures we have is just the fact that we want to live above our means. So you said you attended private school, public school. I went through public schools, public school all my life. So, and there is nothing that some of these people will do that I cannot do. I don't know if you've ever experienced some of these graduates. They drop a note for you. You're not able to read. You're not, and yet when they mention the schools they attended, you're struggling to, find the correlation between the schools they attended and the things they put out. So this is not to malign, this is not to say anything against all of these schools. We have some fantastic private schools, I must admit. We have some fantastic private schools. But I tell you, some of them are still coming up when it comes to the issue of public schools. So if you know you can't afford it, Lagos State has a fantastic system running with the public schools. Please go through the rigors, and that's why it is not just all comers affair. You can't go and dump your children in any school in Lagos. There is a process. Please take the pain to go through the process and see what Lagos State is doing. And that standard, they've maintained it for over 10 years now. No, a lot more than that, about 15 years now, they've maintained it. That I can say clearly. So if you think you can't afford private schools, the public schools are there. We have quite a number of good ones among them. So me, I'm not one who goes about it has to be this, if not this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Remy. This is really mind blowing. And coming from someone like you, it's something that we need. People and parents need to hear more. It's not. I mean, this whole thing is always getting parents off balance, and it's important that we put this message out there. You don't need to go through that whole stress. So we are really grateful to have having you on our show this morning. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Remy. It's so good to have you.
Okay, back to you, Reverend. You heard what Remy said, and I know that you're in concurrence with him. Now, how do we talk about protocol safety measures in schools as schools are resuming? We've had cases where security abuse kids, like when Olori said that parents have left training in the hands of teachers. Now, how do schools or parents now put safety measures within their children so that they avoid certain things that happens in school?
Okay, that's a very valid question. I think what parents should do is to carry out a background check. They should know where these people, like say for instance the security now, where they have been employed from. They should have a rapport with the school. They should be friends with the school. Because when you have such relationship, it's easy for the school to open up to you, and you can even give your own input on how you think they can really provide safety. Because safety should always come first. These children are delicate. They need a lot of guidance for them to develop and mature into healthy adults. So I would say the parents should carry out a search, carry out all they need to carry out that has to do with safety of their children. How the school run, know the system, how do they admit people, allow people come in, I mean, they're going on in and out of the school. They need to put everything in check, nothing, no stone unturned, because we have very smart, evil people out there that disguise in wisdom, look for loopholes where maybe the parents or the school is not actually paying attention, that they take that advantage and they begin to do terrible things. So I think the parents should have a very good rapport with the school, be able to know how they carry out their checks when it comes to do with safety. They should even go around and see if they have fire extinguishers, if they have exit points. All those things are very, very important.
Even the person that brings the child from home to school, whether it's a school bus or you are getting someone on your own, you need to also monitor that. Now, talking about counselors and relating with children as they resume back to school, like the sick pay and all that, some schools don't have, not all school has, except maybe some borders. Now, what's your view about this, even as you put security in place? What's your view about trying to get familiar as a parent? Get familiar, you're talking about a story You know, so if you have been cautioning such a child from youth and from a childhood training that don't do this, he or she would know his or her limit. So how do parents, as the children are resuming, like they are now going to JSS 1, JSS 2, they want to, like, I'm in a senior class, I've left my primary school. What would you advise parents to, you know, put into their children before setting out for resumption?
You made a statement earlier on. You said that when you bring up a child the way you should, when he grows up,
They will never
he
depart
won't
from
depart
it. Yeah.
from it. So it still starts from home. And the children of today will love to do what they see you do, not what you tell them to do.
They want to explore.
Yes, so it's by example. So they watch the parents. So parents should be very, very cautious with the way they carry themselves, with the way they comport themselves when they are angry, when they do things, because these children are watching. They learn by example. You can tell a child, go and take your books and read. If you don't read, that child will not read. You tell the child, stop watching TV, and you're on soap opera, maybe that child will, because what you are telling the child is contrary.
It's contrary.
You are telling me to do this, and this is what you're doing.
Let them know.
So the child will do what he or she sees the parent doing. That is where the training starts. It is from the parents. Because you want your child to be something, you start modeling that thing. That is the best way a child will learn. So it's easy for you to tell a child, when you go to school, don't do this. You should be doing such thing at home. The child should see you talk with the mother or talk with the father, see the way you respond. You know, that child learns, and that child grows up seeing the way you handle issues. And so it's easy for you to be able to instruct that child when you are an example.
I want to say a big thank you to you, and Reverend Mike, you've done a great job this morning. Thank you to you. Thank you to Remilawa, because I know he's still watching us from home. Thank you to everyone who has taken time to stay with us and connect with us this morning. And I'm sure what we have talked about, resuming back to school of our children, I'm sure you must have picked not one, not two. You have picked many that you need to go back and check. And it's good when you do this. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you once
so,
again.
Joy, from you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Today's topic cuts across every parent out there. You know, it's not too late. You can still go back to the drawing board, look at it. If the school you have your kids is way beyond your, please move them. We have good government schools. I think the problem is we don't want to go through that stress of taking the process. We don't like process. We just love, you know, bring and,
simple.
you know, let's go through that process so that we can give them the best and also be comfortable. Let's not overstress ourselves. And please, what is not necessary, don't infuse it. If you think that it's not everything the school brings to you that you accept, look at what your child truly needs, take out of it, and then move on. Thank you very much for joining us on today's show.
Okay, so like you said, the process you refuse to process will stress you. And that stress will now come back and bounce back on you and becomes depression in future. We're talking about a life. You are building those lives, and God has put those lives into your hands. We're talking from family and values. And my name is Irene Adejoke Adobi David. I want to wish all the celebrants, Mrs. Abodunri, our GA head of programs, Mr. Femi Adewale, Yetundo Gidon, happy birthday to all of you out there. Wish you all the very best today, the 9th of January 2024. We hope to see you tomorrow, and I'm sure you won't want to miss it.